Hello, it's Samantha Nolan-Smith, and I am thrilled to be with you. I am just making sure that everything is set up so that I can see comments and questions. And this is our session following on from a short course that we've been offering. It's been a free course offered throughout the month of June called Smash the Patriarchal Mindset. And in that course, we've been talking about the good girl and the way that as a patriarchal archetype influences the way that we show up as women in the world, influences the way that we speak up, influences the way that we feel comfortable being seen. We've been talking about money and about how patriarchal conditioning influences the amount of money we earn as women. And we've been talking about public spaces and the way that, again, patriarchal conditioning affects how comfortable we feel in public spaces. And not because women inherently have a problem with being in public space, but because of the messaging we receive about what's appropriate and what's not appropriate and who belongs. And that is really the big messaging around public spaces and women that comes from patriarchy, which is you don't belong. So, as you come on the call, let us know where you're joining us from. And there are some particular things I want to talk about today, but I also want to open up to questions. So, as we're going through, I'll just remind you if you've got questions, just pop them in the comments. I can see them here. And I'll answer your questions as we're going through, plus I'll answer any questions at the end as well. So I think that one of the things the personal development realm does well is it shows up the ways that we might be blocked from realizing our full potential in the world. What it hasn't done so well is to link that to an understanding of structural inequality and how systems have been set up in the world to benefit some people and disadvantage others, and that those systems actually create enormous personal blocks because we internalize the messaging of those systems, and then we have stories about how we are supposed to behave in the world. And what patriarchal conditioning does is it effectively gaslights every single woman on the planet. So again, as I'm going through, if you've got questions, pop them in the comments, and I'll come to them. So what is gaslighting? Gaslighting is what's known as a form of psychological abuse. It is where false information is presented with the idea of making you doubt yourself, with the idea of making you question yourself, where this is my lived experience, and somebody else is saying, no, you're wrong. It's you that's the problem. And all forms of systemic oppression, all forms of systemic inequality, patriarchy, white supremacy, ableism, etc., heteronormative, a society that's informed by heteronormative values, classism, these things all gaslight the people who are suffering from oppression within that system. We're talking today about patriarchy, but it applies equally to all systems of oppression, this same effect. And so what happens is that as women in a patriarchal society, and remember, the patriarchy is the oldest form of systemic oppression or systemic inequality. It's been in existence at least for 4,500 years. To my knowledge, we don't have records beyond that. I don't know how much further it goes beyond that, but it's a very old system of hierarchy, of saying men are here and women are down here. And so lots and lots and lots and lots of beliefs and ideas have been developed around what woman is, what man is, what's natural, what's unnatural, what's appropriate, what's not appropriate. And because they've been handed down generation after generation after generation globally, obviously there's been cultural differences in the way these things have shown up, but it's happened across the board. There are very, very few matriarchal societies in the world. I think maybe there's one or two. Because this has happened globally and it's so pervasive, we've taken this on board, and this harmful messaging around the inferiority of womanhood. And even though we're 21st century women, we consider ourselves very modern and contemporary and awake, use whatever terminology you like there. There is conditioning that we've both internalized, inherited, and also that is just unexamined. And we think that we're free from, but actually is all there in ourselves, waiting to be freed up in this lifetime by this generation. I really believe this is one of our jobs, to support the future generations of women and girls coming through. So what does it look like when we internalize patriarchy? It looks like holding women to a double standard, holding women to a higher standard than you might hold men, expecting more from women than you might expect from men. So you'll hear women say, you'll hear people of color say this, you'll hear Black people say this as well. So I'm not pretending this is just about gender. That women have to work twice as hard to get half the recognition. And so it is with other groups that are oppressed within society. And all of this double standards, judging women's success more harshly than you might judge a man's success. So it goes both ways. It's like expecting more of a woman, but then when she succeeds, there's a huge amount of judgment that comes over that. All of this comes from the internalization of the patriarchal mindset. And then when you're thinking to yourself, I might start a business. I like the opportunities that the 21st century offers around running businesses, utilizing technology, the reach that I can get, the people that I can find. All of that conditioning comes to the surface, and you're like, hang on, I'm going to suddenly go from being not a target to being a big target, because I'm going to have to keep putting myself out there and telling people about my work and telling people about my work. And I'm going to have to make offers. And suddenly all of this awareness, even at a subconscious level of, but hang on, I'm held to a different standard, brings up terrible amounts of fear in the body. And there are multiple ways that you can address that. What we do at the School of Visibility is we go to the core of the problem, which is this: I've been gaslighted my whole life on some level by a society that is informed by patriarchal mindset. And it has led me to try to find strategies to overcome that. One of the strategies we talk a lot about, we've spoken about in Smash the Patriarchal Mindset. We speak about it at the School of Visibility, particularly next month when we focus on women and we go deeper into patriarchal conditioning in a program called A Visible Woman. One of the things that we do is we go to the core of the problem, which is this societal influence, and then we pull it out from its roots. We look at the cause and we utilize personal development techniques to free ourselves from that. Other ways that people reckon, other ways are just, just ignore it, just pretend it's not there, just push through it, just pretend you're not affected by it. And I personally don't ascribe to that, because I think that it is it's harmful to you to try and do it that way. It doesn't respect the the emotions that are connected to it. It doesn't honor the wounding, and it certainly doesn't heal the wounding. It just kind of papers over the top of it, hoping that it'll go away. My preference is to pull up the wounding, hold it compassionately and with kindness, and heal it, so that then you can step forward as a whole woman, as a confident woman, not somebody who's been injured by this gaslighting society that we live in. So let's just give a couple more examples of how we're gaslighted, and then I want to talk about some specifics about what that might look like in your business. How else are we gaslighted as women? When we're sexually assaulted, we're told that it didn't happen, that actually, I think you're confused. There was consent there. When we speak up at meetings, our voices, we've got data now around how women's voices are or are not respected in, I'm just going to close this door because it's distracting me, the neighbor's noise. I'll keep talking though. When we've got data now that says that when women speak up in a meeting, she needs to repeat herself 3 times. She needs to repeat herself 3 times in order to be heard. That the equivalent, if a man said the same thing, he would be heard the first time. She needs to say it 3 times in order for them to hear it, for her voice to actually resonate in the meeting room. We've got these little sayings like, "Oh, don't worry about the little woman." You know that saying? Have you got that saying? In Australia, we've got that one. The little woman. It's like, don't worry about her perspective. Don't worry about her. She's sort of insignificant. She's not, her perceptions of the world, her stories, her wisdom isn't that important, isn't valuable. So the results of being gaslit in this way for such a long time, in very subtle ways sometimes, is that there's an epidemic of self-doubt and confusion that women experience in the world. There's an epidemic of imposter syndrome. These are all the consequence of living in a society that undermines you, undermines you, undermines you every single day. So we have huge amounts of imposter syndrome, chronic doubt, self-doubt about, am I doing the right thing? Is this the best way forward? And you can kind of get away with that when you work for somebody else if you've got a boss, because they tell you what to do and they give you parameters within which to work, and then you can still be full of self-doubt, but at least you're not making all the decisions. But when you're running your own business, self-doubt is massively corrosive, massively, because you've got to make all the decisions. You are the CEO of your organization. And so if you are crippled by this, then it will be extremely hard to get your voice out. It will be extremely hard for you to make decisions about the products you want to sell, about the messaging that you want to put out there into the world, about definitely you'll be terrified of saying anything controversial, because you'll be like, I don't know, maybe I don't have all the information. Maybe I shouldn't speak up about this yet until I've got another degree, or I've done some more training. And so we, as women, we end up developing these extraordinary levels of expertise without stepping forward to share it with the world. It's a huge visibility problem. So we become extremely vulnerable to external influences. This is part of what happens to us, is we become these extremely, we become vulnerable, and there's a great deal of fear that that sits within that. But one of the other things that one of the things that happens is we try to be perfect, we try to be more educated, we try all these strategies to kind of armor ourselves against criticism and against judgment, and the over-educating ourselves is one of them. Trying to show up and be perfect, deny our imperfections is another one. Constantly be kind, amenable, pleasant, all of the things that we're asked to be as women. in the hope that maybe I won't offend anybody. But I've got another recommendation to make for you today rather than going down that path. And that is to build resilience to criticism, to build resilience to other people's opinions and other people's judgments. And that's what I want to spend a few minutes talking about now. And that's because the more visible you become in the world, the more you open yourself up to criticism. So you can either spend the time thinking, I'll just make my website more perfect, and then I'll make my offering more perfect, and then I'll make my marketing more perfect, and I'll do all of these pieces, and then nobody will ever criticize me because it'll all be perfect. But by that time you'll be 125 and you will have missed the boat for this lifetime. What you can do instead is focus on, what if criticism wasn't a problem in my life? What if I wasn't so terrified of being criticized? What would that look like? So let's just talk about two different ways people might criticize you. There might be people who criticize you who are not a part of your community, who are just like randoms in the world, who either somehow end up seeing one of your posts, but they're not somebody who's in your community, and they just leave some kind of horrible comment. Or they see one of your ads and then they leave something awful on your ad. There's that group of people. And then the other group of people are people who send you criticism who are within your community. And I want to talk about them separately because they are a different group and there is a different intention there. The people who are just, you can call them the haters. They're not trolls. Trolls are sort of a more extreme version of this. But let's talk about the haters, and generally just mean people who are just like looking for things on random stuff on social media to criticize. So I have I have those all the time, but I had one this morning, which I thought, oh, this is a good example, where I had an ad for Smash the Patriarchal Mindset, directing people to the course. And we had a typo in the ad. I hadn't seen the typo as I had done the final edit, proof of it. I had some baby bathing situation going on, which, isn't ideal, obviously, but working mum, sometimes that happens. And so I had thought it was fine and then, said, yep, we can go ahead. Anyway, then I woke up to a criticism that said, what did it say? It said, oh, hard to feel good about a school that has such a poor grasp of grammar. So what do you do with that? Here's what I did. I deleted it and moved on, and then thought, oh, that's a great example to use today. However, what that would have done in the past is it would have felt like a physical attack on me. I would have had this physical reaction of, oh no, something's gone out with a typo, because I am certainly a recovering perfectionist. Something's gone out with a typo. Oh no, what are people going to think? And lots of different responses then can happen. We can pull the ad. It can be an excuse to stop being visible. We can get into an argument about the person, get defensive. We can get snidey and snippy with them. We can try and prove to them, oh yes, I know that was a mistake, and tell the whole story about why we had a typo in our advert. Or we can just fix the advert and maybe even put more money into it after that, but also be grateful that it got shown up. So that's what I chose to do. And the reason I was able to do that was for many reasons. One is, every time in the past that somebody has criticized my work and it has hit me, by which I mean, when this happens, you feel it physically in your body, you feel an emotional reaction to it. I have immediately started to do clearing work. So I have said, okay, this is an opportunity to clear. It's giving me another opportunity to see where I'm at my stretch around visibility, and it's giving me a chance to go to the next. So what I do in that moment, and this is what I want to share with you, is I recognize how I'm feeling. I use one of the tools that we teach in the School of Visibility to then clear the stories around I'm not good enough, what is the point? My work is never going to be perfect. Now people won't like the school, blah, 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 whatever the stories are, whatever the inner critic is telling me around what this means. And I clear it and I clear it. And let's say I might use tapping. That's one of the techniques we use where I tap out all the stories. I might use compassion, self-compassion. I might use non-personal awareness, whatever it is. And then I give, when I'm clear, I just thank the other person for, even though they've delivered it in a way that is rude or they don't have my best interests at heart. They don't have the best interests of the school at heart. They're deliberately, just spewing a little bit of their hate onto us. I still bless them. I don't bless them as in I feel like I'm superior to them. I just send them a little bit of gratitude for the thing that was helpful in the message, which is, oh, you've shown up something that I'd like to get fixed, because I don't want that to go out into the world with a typo anyway. So I just say thank you for that in my mind. And then I remember it's my platform. It's the School of Visibility platform. It's not their platform. And so then I just delete it. I don't need to engage with it. It's not somebody that I want in our community. It's not the kind of energy that I want to be bringing to the work. So delete and off and on I go from there. There's no obligation on you. And this is another thing patriarchal conditioning will have you believe, that if you've got a platform, it just should be open. You should always be open to all people and all perspectives, and just create an environment where if you're being beaten up the whole time, that's perfectly fine. No, it's not. If there are some legitimate concerns by people in your community, and we'll come to that in a minute, then absolutely there's a way to lead through that. And we're going to talk more about that in the next couple of months, about inclusive communities. But that's not what I'm talking about here. I'm just talking about straight up. I'm not talking about people being harmed by your words. I'm just talking about straight up your crap kind of commentary. In those situations, you are under no obligation to keep that criticism on your platform. You can just delete it. It's fine. It's fine to say no, thank you. Thank you, universe, for showing me that those people were coming in. Goodbye. Not for me. There's a boundary right there. It's fine to set boundaries around that. Now, the other type of people that might send you criticism are people within your community. And we were talking about this with the students at the School of Visibility the other week, because one of the students had received, again, grammatical comments about an email that she had sent out, where she had sent it out, and the woman, a very heartfelt email, and the woman, instead, you would want, as you want, you've been vulnerable, you've shared a particular perspective, and the woman's, from her community's comment back was, you've got a grammatical error in your thing. Now, there are ways and ways of handling that, yeah? The first thing that I do there is recognize if this is somebody who's in my community, and in fact has been in my community for a while and is invested in the community, and that's what the case was in this situation, then I know that she cares about the work that we're putting into the world. So rather than making it about me and, oh my God, this is really distressing me and she's made me feel ashamed and blah, 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 and whatever stories I might bring up, I first of all remember she's taken the time to support the work that we're offering in the world. And so I'm grateful for that. So that's the first thing I do. Then if I feel triggered by that, if I feel like, oh, that's just sent me into some kind of shame spiral, then I again do personal development work immediately before any other action that I take. I immediately either tap, again, use many of the other tools that we use in the School of Visibility. We have a whole library within there. If you study with us, you have access to a whole library of personal development resources for a whole lot of a lot of different circumstances that might come up as you're running your business. And you just go in there and you use that tool for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, clear the thing and move on. Then again, I send love to that person because they're helping me to raise the standard of the work. So I'm like, thank you for doing that. I don't enter into a big long debate about justifying myself. I would just say, thanks for letting us know. And that's it. Thanks for letting us know. I appreciate you taking the time to let us know. And then that's it. And then I move on. But if you've been triggered by it, you can't move on. Your head starts to go, oh, I've got to justify myself. I've got to tell it. I've got to do. I've got to prove my value. I've got to prove my worth to this person. And that stuff has nothing to do with that woman. That stuff has to do with wounding from childhood, patriarchal conditioning, living in a society that gaslights you 24/7. And that's where the focus needs to be. Instead of on the woman, it needs to be on clearing those things. So that is what we do at the School of Visibility specifically. We have every 4 months, we work for a month intensively on clearing visibility blocks. And we look at different ways that visibility blocks show up. In July, we're looking specifically about how patriarchal conditioning creates visibility blocks in women. And we're going to the core of those and we're clearing them out. If you've done Smash the Patriarchal Mindset, you've had a little bit of a sense of that. You've had a little bit of an experience of that. And so what will happen is if you just choose to come into the school, you'll then do a month of that. We only do this patriarchal conditioning work once a year. It's in July. It's happening obviously in a couple of weeks or in a week. But what we also do, because you also have the chance to stay with us for a year if you want, because visibility blocks are a journey. It takes a while to move through them. Later in the year, we look at, well, what are the visibility blocks that I have inherited from my ancestors as a consequence of my ethnicity or my race through the lineage and that I was born into. And then the way the society interacts with that. So we look at that later in the year. I think that's November. And then toward the beginning of each year, we look at your individual wounds. How does your specific personality, and we look at the Enneagram, how does that influence the way that you choose to show up in the world, but also how does it determine the way you choose to hide? And we specifically look at enhancing the ways you shine and healing the wounding around that keeps you hiding. So that's something that we do throughout the year. I want to talk a little bit more about how the School of Visibility works, but I want to just check that there's no questions or comments. I haven't got any comments now, but I see there's a bunch of people on. So if you've got any questions or comments, or you just want to say hi, just let me know. I want to make sure I'm not missing any comments. It says comment moderation not set, and I'm just wondering whether I have. I think that's fine. Facebook's changed the way it does some of its settings. But persist, put any comments there that you have or any questions you have about what I've discussed so far. Does it make sense to you? Does it bring up an experience for you in your own life? Is there a specific circumstance that you've had that you have found, actually, I haven't been able to get past that. And I know that's blocking me from speaking up, promoting my work, saying controversial things. A lot of our students we end up with at the School of Visibility are people who, oh, thank you, Rachel. Okay, comments are working, good. I can relate to what you've spoken to, good. And thank you for making the comment so I know that they're working. That's another thing that causes visibility blocks, right? You're like, how does technology, am I going to be so focused on the technology that I'm going to not be articulate? And that was certainly something that was one of my visibility blocks. Even though I've always been a pretty articulate person, I had a very high standard, perfectionistic standard for myself about expressing my ideas. And for the first couple of years of doing live, not the first couple of years, that's too long. For the first six to 12 months, let's say, of doing lives, the inner critic would come up a lot because I'd be like, you could have expressed that better. You didn't quite express that as well as you could have. So there's this perfectionist coming in all of the time that was then every time I went to do a live, she would show up and would make me not want to press live. So again, straight away, because this is the way we teach at the School of Visibility, as soon as I saw that there was a problem, I used personal development tools to clear it. So then I could go live. And that way, what happens is your life and your personal development just go hand in hand. Your business operations and your personal development go hand in hand. You don't sort of do business over here and personal development over here. They're integrated. And we talk a lot about that. I talk a lot about that with the students, about how to integrate that so that you don't start down a path and cause drama and drama and drama for yourself and delay, only to eventually, finally address the real core issue. Instead, you take an action and then you see there's a challenge there. You've got the tools, you use the tools, you clear it out, you take the next action. Any blocks, any fears get cleared out, and then the next, and then the next, and then the next. And you just walk it step by step in that way, rather than kind of pushing yourself or just getting stuck and then not making progress. Because small, consistent action is something I'm very, very fond of in terms of the way that I like to support my students. Hi, Jane, listening and enjoying, no questions or comments. Great. Technology and perfectionism are both blocks for me. Yeah, and I would call those, Rachel, visibility blocks, because they're blocking, generally the way I observe it. You can tell me if I'm misreading this for you, but what I have observed in my own life and with School of Visibility students is the technology, the fear of technology then becomes a barrier to stepping forward, being seen, sharing your work, being more visible in the world. And what I have found is when you address the visibility fears, interspersed with the technology fears, of course, because there's some sort of technical fears that are around. I don't know how to be technical, and there's a little bit of patriarchal conditioning there around women not being proficient in these things, etc., etc. So there's a little bit of clearing out of that stuff, but there's often technology is a really good barrier to keep ourselves small and safe and not being visible in the world. Perfectionism I've spoken about. So at the School of Visibility, we do those, we do 3 months in a year, we do clear the blocks. The other things we do are up level and embody. And up level, in August, we're doing I Am Heard. What that looks at is how effective your messaging is and how it's landing or not landing with people, how effective your voice is. And it may be I am heard like this, like we're having this conversation now, or it might be I write something and I send it out to the world and I'm heard as I'm being read. Yes, that feels right on point. Thank you. Thanks for letting me know and confirming that for other people as well. So what we do is we take this idea of, if you've ever read Gay Hendricks' book, The Big Leap, Up leveling is about finding your upper limit, your comfort level with being seen and heard in the world and expressing yourself in the world. And what we do is we take you to your comfort level, to your limit. We test that. There's numerous ways we can test that. And then we work through any wounding that would stop you expanding to the next. So we identify the wounds that are stopping you. If you're, let's say your list is at 1,000 people and you want to get to 10,000 people. Oh, I like that, Manita. You're listening while you're cooking. I love it. Let's say your list is at 1,000, you want to get it to 10,000, but you're stuck at 1,000. There's an upper limit issue there. So what we do is we do a workshop, live workshop, where we find what would stop you from moving from 1,000 to 10,000. And we clear. We clear out all of the limitation that's there and then allow you to effortlessly expand. What I normally see is just push through your upper limit, just push through it. Gay Hendricks doesn't say that. Gay Hendricks suggests open to what's the good thing that's trying to come in that I'm not allowing in. I find that I actually, it's more effective for myself and for my students to just gently clear out all of the limitation. So then it's natural for you to open to the goodness that's coming in, as opposed to, I feel terrified, but I'll try and open to the limitation anyway. So that's what we do throughout the course of a year. We do I am seen, I am heard, and I am fully expressed. We up level in those 3 areas. They have different energies associated with them. Being seen generally is more about how we feel about ourselves, our appearance, about people's eyes on us. Being heard is about how clear we are in our communication, in our messaging, how resonant our voices are, yeah, and how we land. Like if you've got a podcast or you've got a YouTube channel, or you've got any aspirations around that, the I am heard work is really helpful for you on that. And then being fully expressed is a different thing again. It's about, I know I've had these experiences in my life and these experiences in my life and these experiences in my life, but I don't know how they all come together. And I just don't feel like I'm quite landing with my business or with the work I'm here to do in the world. It's not fully integrating. It's not fully coming together. And what being fully expressed does is it helps to bring that together. It becomes very coherent. And you finally feel like, oh, this is how all the pieces of the puzzle fit together. And now I can step forward as that. And if you're one of those bridge people, what I mean by a bridge person is, so one of our students, for example, has a background in accountancy, but is has also done training in personal development and psychology and so forth. And so is bringing together how these 2 worlds fit. So obviously there's people who are work in personal development, and there's accountants. And generally the expertise is in one or the other. So what she's doing is, how do I be fully expressed as that middle person who says, actually, accountancy, where was accountancy? This side. Accountancy, you need some more information from the personal development realm to support your work. And then personal development realm, here's some really hardcore, useful, factual information about financial management. So what was first of all happening for her was she was finding that she didn't fit in either camp, and so she didn't know how to show up and be visible, because she was like, but I don't quite fit in the personal development camp, I don't quite fit in the accountancy camp. I feel like an outsider. And then when I spoke to her about, of course you do, you're a bridge person, you stand in the middle, and then you bring the worlds together. And then suddenly she went, ta-da! And so then it became much clearer for her about how to be visible. There are many, many women doing that in many different industries, from the personal training realm to Pilates, to all sorts of things. Some women in our community are working on specifically on, oh, we've actually got loads of patriarchal conditioning, or we've got And it really, my entire industry needs to really shift around the way that the patriarchy is impacting on women's experience in this industry. So lots of women, particularly who come in to do this work next month in July, that's part of their calling. That's part of what they're excited about doing in the world. We also have women who are finding their voice around anti-racism work, or around speaking up around alternative ways to deal with health issues. So effectively speaking up to the medical profession. So the clearing the blocks work that I've spoken about, and the up-leveling and embodiment work that I've spoken about, the embodying aspect of that is really, how do I come to embody this that I am? How do I come to truly not just speak my message, but be my message? That work is hugely important if you want to create genuine ripples in the world, because people learn from your words, but really they're learning from your presence. So we learn about that, we dive into that more. And then we do planning and implementation, we do organization, now that you're more embodied in your message, in why you're here, in what you're here to share, how are you going to be visible in the world? What are you actually practically going to do? So then we do 3 months in the year, we do planning and implementation. You learn a 90-day planning cycle around visibility. And then finally, we do habits. It's called Build New Habits. We're going to bring ritual in as well to that, because the ritual is coming up for a lot of the students. So we then work out, what is my behavior? How is my behavior either helping or hindering the implementation of what I've said I want to do? So if I've said what I want to do is I want to have a podcast, and I want to have I've got a goal for, let's say, I don't know, 20,000 downloads a month by this date. You've got something sort of tangible and practical that you're working toward. What habits have I got that are hindering that from happening? What behavioral things am I doing when I physically sit down at my desk every day? What habits, what mindset habits have I got? So what stories have I got in my mind? And how is that stopping me from actually achieving that goal? Or what habit do I need to build in order for that to happen? Maybe the habit is, I just need to sit down every Tuesday morning and record a podcast episode. And for some reason, I'm not doing it. And then we look at, why are you not doing it? I can relate to her. That's the financial one. I'm also an accountant, but also doing genealogy. Sorry, I nearly pronounced that incorrectly. I love that. There's something going on, isn't there, Manita? It's like the finance world is about to really start to be influenced by many different wonderful things. I love that. I love that. So let me just pick that up as the last thing to mention, which is, whenever you're doing something that's a little bit different, when it's not mainstream, when it's revolutionary is what I would call it. And even if you feel like, I don't know if it's revolutionary, it is revolutionary. But if you would even say, well, maybe it's just not, it's not standard, it's unusual, maybe it's controversial. Whenever you're doing anything of that nature, visibility blocks will come up for sure. There will be the fear, first and foremost, the primal fear of, I'm going to be kicked out from the community. I'm going to be ostracized because I don't belong. There's a real fear of belonging that comes up when you start to use your voice in a way that is different to the way people have been speaking about a particular topic in the past. That must be addressed if you're going to then have the influence that you're here to have in the world. And that's really what we are about at the School of Visibility. We're about working with women who know that they have a calling of some description, who know that they're here to make a positive impact on the planet, who are here to create some sort of change in the world, and who need the support of a community and the support of tools such as the tools that we've mentioned, to do that in a way that doesn't waste time, doesn't waste money, doesn't feel alone. So they're the big things that we offer. We allow you to more quickly move through any potential blocks that are coming up so that you can step forward and fulfill that calling more quickly and be more fulfilled in that more sooner than you otherwise would be. What it also does is it means that you don't waste time going round and round in circles telling yourself. So what happens is the way we waste a lot of money is we feel into what we're called to do. We suddenly feel it, we get excited for a minute, then we get panicked, we get overwhelmed by it. We think, oh my God, that's too much. Who am I to step into that role? This is I can't possibly do it. And we shrink back, and then we convince ourselves to do something else for another couple of years. And then we go off on all sorts of things, and we do some, we invest in this and we invest in this, and we start building a business that's not the business that you were born to build. I want to save you both the time and the money around that. When you, instead of hitting that point and then freaking out and shrinking back, I want to help you move through that cocoon period. I call it the caterpillar moving into the butterfly period. I want to help you to move into the butterfly period with ease. What was that? And then what was the final thing I was talking about there? I've just lost the plot. I can't remember. That's obviously not important for right now. So that's what we do at the school. We help you, we support you with these things. We deliberately created it as a membership style experience where you can either join us for a season. Season goes for 4 months rather than 3 because we've got 4 elements to the curriculum. Or you can join us for a year and then stay with us. If you joined us for a season, then you're like, actually want to stay. Sometimes we have people who are like, actually, now I want to stay for a year. We've got that container for you for however long you need it to work through the visibility issues as they're coming up. I wanted to do that because I hated this experience as a teacher and a coach. I hated the experience of teaching you and connecting with you and supporting you for 6 weeks and 8 weeks, and then nothing. It just felt wrong. It felt wrong to me on every level. And I knew for a fact that people hadn't dealt with all of their visibility issues in that time. They dealt with a few, but there was still more and more and more. And so at the end of last year, I completely changed up our offering, the way we support our students. And we have this ongoing container for you for as long as you need it. So that's what we offer at the school. Please let me know if you've got any questions. We're taking applications now for the beginning of July. So we'll shut off the applications next week. And then we move into the program, the block clearing program of Visible Woman. And we do 4 weeks on what a woman is, patriarchal messaging around our bodies, around money, more around perfectionism and good girl training or syndrome, more around, it'll help you with setting boundaries. It'll help you with just stepping forward with way more confidence in the world. It'll help you to let go of all of that inner doubt and the questioner. And where we want to end up and what everything is directed to at the school is to help you to be consistent in speaking up, in seeing your community, talking to your community. We help you to be clear about how you're showing up and what you're saying when you show up. We help you obviously with confidence. We help you to be resilient, so that this is what I spent a good deal of time talking about at the beginning, so that instead of waiting for everything to be perfect, you just continue going. And then as problems arise, which inevitably they will, you are resilient. You've got the resilience to manage that, to deal with that, to work through it and keep going. We help you with engagement. So you feel not embarrassed by being engaged with your community, or like who's going to show up and what are they going to say, or am I just in broadcasting mode, that mode where you feel like I'm talking to social media, is anybody listening? But instead move into actual conversation engagement with people, what that feels like. We support you with expanding your influence, because what we know for sure is that the world needs women who are embodied in their wisdom, in their knowledge, who are purposeful about how they're speaking up and showing up in the world, and who are impacting as many people as possible, because that is how we will change the world. Not because one woman will step forward and we'll all look to that one woman, but because all of us will step forward and take our place. That's the invitation. I would love you to join us. Every week I do office hours where I provide personalized mentoring and support to people. Plus we have 2 live workshops a month where we meet on Zoom, and we chat and we do clearing work, and we have mentoring in there and group coaching experiences and so forth. So if you feel like that would be beneficial for you at this time, and you feel open to looking at this stuff, clearing it out, you want to be free of it, you're open to being coached, if you're feeling like, I just don't want anybody else to coach me, or I'm not open to really change at all, then the School of Visibility is definitely not for you. If I'm ready, I want to change, I'm ready to change, and I really want to work through this stuff, the School of Visibility is for you. So you can join us and apply at theschoolofvisibility.com/study. And there's a button on those pages to apply here, and then you just apply. And we let you know within 48 hours if we think you're a good match. Generally, by this point, you will have worked out if you're a good match or not. If you're, most people self-select off if they realize, oh no, what she's talking about isn't for me. But we love to get a sense of where you're at, what you want to achieve, and make sure that we can be of service to you, that we can support you. I don't want to, this is not a school where we just, we don't care about our students. We care deeply about our students and about the experience that you have with us, and about your journey to being more visible, because ultimately the visibility journey is the journey of empowerment. It's the journey of reclaiming power as a woman. And that's a journey that requires some holding. So we want to make sure that we are the right people to hold you as you work through that. Okay, if you've got any more questions, please let me know. If you've got any more comments, if you listen to this on the replay and then you have questions, pop them in the comments, and I'll come back and answer any questions there, or just send us a direct message, or send us an email at hello@theschoolofvisibility.com, and we will answer any questions you've got there as well. Okay. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your experiences, some of your own blocks, and I'll talk to you soon.